I'm Phyllis Stork of Stork Custom Mouthpieces. Today, we're going to talk about the bore. It's the smallest part of the mouthpiece, but it can affect everything: your sound, your endurance, your response, your intonation. It can even change the way you play. So while it's small, it has a huge impact. Our goal today is to help you understand how to use it. So let's get started. The bore is the smallest internal point of the mouthpiece. Bores are named based on the size of the drill used to create them. For French horn and trumpet, this has always been based on the wire gauge index of drills. Keep in mind, the difference between drill sizes is only about 3 to 4 thousandths of an inch. That's about the thickness of a sheet of paper. For trumpet, the long-standing standard has been a number 27 bore. The reason for this is Vincent Bach, since he was the first manufacturer to mass-produce mouthpieces. Most original New York Bach trumpet pieces actually have a number 28 bore in them. This was obviously perceived by most at the time to be too small, and the number 27 drill became the norm. Vincent Bach used to hand out small brooch files at shows to help encourage players to experiment with the bore size. This was a great way to make short work of opening the bore. Of course, it was an equally quick and clever way to boost mouthpiece sales. Now, a bore that's too small is usually pretty obvious, but going too big, that's much more common. And when that happens, the body reacts. The throat tightens, the tongue rises, the jaw starts to close, all in an attempt to create resistance that isn't there. And while that tightening can feel like control, it actually works against you. It interferes with resonance and shuts down the airflow. And that shift from ease and projection to poor response and endurance can happen quickly, or so gradually you don't even notice it. So, how do you keep from becoming that guy and find your own sweet spot? First, let's get a quick overview of how the mouthpiece actually works. The purpose of the bore is to regulate the speed of the air. How does this work? Well, in much the same way as the nozzle on a garden hose does. When you attach a nozzle to a garden hose, you gain the ability to create great speed in the flow of the water. When we blow air into the mouthpiece, the narrowing of the bore causes the flow rate of the air to increase, creating velocity in the very same way. This phenomenon is known as the Venturi effect. This is why many people refer to the bore as the Venturi. The scientific explanation for this increase in velocity is what is known as the Bernoulli effect. What this shows is that as pressure decreases, velocity increases. The larger the cross-section, the greater the pressure. This may seem counterintuitive, but this is mostly because we tend to take the pressure of the air that is all around us for granted. For example, by blowing quickly across this piece of paper, I am removing the pressure of the layer of air above it that is holding the paper down, thus allowing the paper to rise up. I know, amazing, right? All right, time to put science aside. Here's the key: compensation isn't really a physical problem. Your body is doing exactly what you're asking it to do. It's a mismatch problem. Your job is to create velocity, but the system you're working in has to be something you can actually power. Every player operates within a range. We call it MEP, maximum expiratory pressure. That's the human equivalent of PSI, the range of pressure you can comfortably and sustainably produce. Not your peak for a few measures, but what you can actually live in. There's a floor where vibration won't sustain cleanly, and a ceiling where compensation begins. And that range is different for everyone. It depends on your physiology, your concept, your equipment, and the equipment either matches that range or it doesn't. If it demands more than you can sustain, you will compensate. You'll compress the oral cavity, tighten the throat, raise the tongue, and all of that works against resonance. Think about it this way: a coffee stirrer, too tight; a straw, now you can move air, you can create speed. That works. But take that same effort and try to move air through a paper towel roll, you can't accelerate it the same way. So what happens? You work harder. You start tightening and organizing the system, trying to create that same speed. And at a certain point, those same mechanisms that should create velocity start shutting the air down instead. And this is where the confusion starts. Players are often told to open up more, when in reality, they've already gone past the point where they can move the volume efficiently. Going larger just creates more compensation, not more sound. When I hear that kind of compensation, I'll go tighter on the bore, and the player's reaction is almost always the same. That opens right up. What they're feeling isn't more space, it's efficiency. They've moved back into a system they can actually drive. So, dialing in the bore isn't about more or less. It's about finding the range where you can create and sustain velocity comfortably without having to overcompensate. That's the difference between work that produces sound and work that cancels itself out. And when you find that range, you don't have to force it, it's just there. You can hear it. The sound resonates, the response is immediate, the system stays stable. Playing feels less like walking through mud and more like floating. That's balance. That's your flow state. And yes, I mean that in every sense.